Tonight's practice will be focused on isometric strength building. So we will be holding postures for a bit longer than we normally do, so that while those muscles are contracted, not lengthened, the length of them does not change, but they're just contracted, kind of like wrapping muscle to bone, if you can kind of picture that in your head. While you're holding that is what is building the strength. So I hope you like it, and I will invite you now to set up space on your mat and settle in and get comfortable. We're going to center, and then we will end the practice. After we move, we'll end the practice with some breathing techniques and a short guided meditation. So I hope you like it. Enjoy. Begin by settling in on your mat, coming to a place where you are comfortable enough to be still for a few minutes. Start to focus on your breath, moving in and out through the nose. Just notice the way the body responds to each breath. Notice the sounds around you, the temperature of the air. Start to soften the face, the shoulders, the arms and legs. Come back to your breath, and at the end of your next exhale, tone the low belly, drawing it in and up, and placing your hand on your chest. So one hand on your belly, one hand on your chest. Again, come back to noticing movement that's created. Notice how the breath feels different now with the belly pulled in. And now tuck the chin closer to your chest. And notice as you exhale now, you can hear a little whispering sound at the back of your throat. And this is called the Ujjayi breath. And you can use this sound to remind you to come back into the present moment if you get distracted at any time during practice. And now bring your awareness or your hands or both to the space of your heart, and use this time before we start to move to set your intention for your time on your mat today. Words of healing or guidance, a mantra, an affirmation, something that you can also use as an anchor to bring your awareness back into the space and into your body. And when you're ready, you can lower yourself down onto your mat on your back. And once you're on your back, just lengthen the legs out long. Lengthen your arms down by your sides. Lift and spread your toes. Press the heels into your mat. Keep the belly drawn in. And just very slowly start to move the head from side to side. So as you exhale, turn the head to the side. As you inhale, bring it back through the center. And keep moving on your breath. Really simple, small movement to start that rhythm of one breath, one movement. Now come to stillness when your head is in the center. And on your exhale, begin to lift the head just enough to see your feet. Lower back down on the inhale and keep moving with your breath. Exhale, lift the head to see your feet. Inhale, lower the head down. Keep moving with your breath. And pause here if you'd like to pause with the head lifted just to see what that feels like to be in stillness with a bit of effort. And then when you are ready, you can lower the head back down. Place a bend into the knees. Bring the bottoms of your feet together. Knees out wide. Take your arms out into a T with the palms facing up. As you exhale, bring the palms together so they're right in front of you with the fingertips pointing toward the ceiling. And as you inhale, bring them back out into that T. So move with your breath. Inhale, open. Exhale, close. Keep pressing the feet together and lifting and spreading the toes away from each other. Keep the belly pulled in. Keep the fingers spread out wide. And try to keep your shoulders away from your ears. Now, the next time the palms are together, bring the fingertips together and really press them in and notice how that changes the muscle tone of your arms. With the fingertips pressed together, begin to move your arms up and overhead on your inhale and come back to where you started on your exhale. So work through this very slowly on the breath. Only take your arms back as far as you can go where you don't feel any type of pain. If you feel a little discomfort, just notice that. But listen to your body here and know when you need to pull back a little bit. It changes everything when you have the hands touching each other and try to take your arms up and overhead. The next time you have your arms straight in front of you with the fingertips still touching, begin to raise your hands a little closer to the ceiling on your exhale, and then bring them back down on the inhale. It's a very subtle movement. Just move with your breath. And then eventually start to take the arms down by your sides again, back up into a T, palms facing down. Keep the knees bent, draw them together, and then step your feet to the outside edges of your mat to begin a series of windshield wiper movements. With each exhale, take the knees to one side, take your gaze in the opposite direction. With each inhale, you draw the knees and the gaze back through center. So move like this with your breath, moving from side to side on the breath. Inhale back through center, exhale to the side. Try to keep the bandhas engaged. Toes lifted and spread, belly pulled in, fingers spread wide. Eventually bring that to stillness. When you're back in the center, walk the feet back to about hips distance apart. Draw the knees in toward your chest and hug them in with your arms. And just slowly rock from side to side. Maybe take the knees around your hips, circle in one direction, and then circle in the opposite direction. Bring that to stillness. Place your hands at the back of your thighs just underneath your knees. Lift and spread the toes, press down through the tailbone, and begin to straighten the legs, sending your heels up toward the ceiling with each inhale. With each exhale, place a bend back into the knees. And the next time the legs are straight, start to move the ankles. Point and flex, circle, whatever feels good to you. Just get a little movement in the ankles.
And bring that to stillness. Place a bend back into the knees. Take the feet to the floor about hips distance apart. Ankles tracking underneath the knees. Bring the arms down by your sides. Place a bend into your elbows so the fingertips are pointing toward the ceiling. Lift and spread the toes. Pull the belly in and spread the fingers wide. As you inhale, begin to lift the hips up toward the ceiling as you press down through the feet and down through the upper arms. With each exhale, lower the hips back down to the floor. Move with your breath. Inhale up, exhale down. The next time the hips are lifted, pause there. Keep lifting through the hips and pressing down through the feet, down through the upper arms. Come back to noticing breath. Stay with noticing sensation in your body. Come back to your intention if you are getting distracted in this moment of effort. Bring the hips back down to the floor. Keep everything else as it is, and then draw the right knee in. Straighten out the leg if that feels good to you at this time. Point and flex the foot a little bit. Then bring the leg back down, knee tracking over the hip, foot tracking out from the knee. As you inhale, press down through the left foot and lift the hips up toward the ceiling with the right foot still tracking just in front of the knee. Try to keep that shape as you move. And then see what it feels like to pause with the hips lifted, now with the weight on the one foot and the other foot is lifted. So left foot down, right foot is lifted. Eventually bring the hips back down to the floor and switch sides. So bring your right foot back down, draw the left knee in, bend and straighten the leg a few times, move the ankle. This time bring the left knee over the hip, foot straight out from the knee, press down through the right foot, and start to lift the hips up toward the ceiling on the inhale. Exhale, bring the hips back down. Move with your breath. Same thing, opposite side, just notice any differences. Pressing down this time through the right foot with the left foot lifted. Again, with the hips lifted, pause. Notice how this feels. Requires a little bit more effort, a little bit more focus to keep the hips lifted without starting to sink down. Holding for just a little longer than usual. Bringing the hips back down to the floor, lower the feet back down, draw the right knee in, straighten out the leg, point and flex the foot a few times to release the hamstring. Bring the feet back down, lengthen out the legs and take your arms overhead for a quick full body stretch. Breathe deeply through the belly. And then place a bend back into your knees. Lift the feet up off the floor, knees tracking over your hips. Feet straight out from the knees. Bring your arms straight in front of you, fingertips pointing toward the ceiling. Brace the front body. Lift and spread your toes, spread the fingers wide. And as you inhale, begin to push the feet slightly forward and take the arms slightly back. Exhale, come back to where you began and move like this with your breath. Begin to move a little bit more slowly. See what that feels like in the body. Breathing more slowly, moving more slowly. One breath, one movement. Keep the belly toned, keep the tailbone pressed down. And each time you take your feet forward, take your arms back, see if you can go just a little farther. And when you get to the point where you think that is your limit, pause there. Come back to your breath. Search for your edge and listen to your body. If you feel any pain in the low back, please back off from this. Bring the feet back in a little bit. Bring the arms back in towards center a little bit. Otherwise, just focus on your breath. Keep it moving in and out through the nose. And take the feet back down, arms overhead. Lengthen the legs out long. Take a full body stretch here. Breathe deeply into the belly again. And eventually make your way onto hands and knees. Position your hands under your shoulders, knees under your hips, and feet straight out from your knees. Press the tops of your feet down, pull the belly in, and spread the fingers out wide. With each inhale, bring your shoulder blades together on your back and take your gaze slightly forward. With each exhale, push your shoulder blades apart and look back at your legs, letting your head hang heavy. Move like this with your breath. And the next time you're looking back at your legs, send your hips back to your heels. As you inhale, come right back up, pull your shoulder blades together, look forward. Exhale, look back at your legs, send your hips back to your heels. So move through this a few times on your breath, pressing down through the hands, down through the feet. And the next time you're up on hands and knees again, pause. Brace the front body and lift your right leg straight out behind you, parallel to the floor. When you feel steady there, lift the left arm up, parallel to the floor, pause, and with the exhale, begin to lower the fingertips down and the toes down. With each inhale, come back up to where you began and move like this with your breath. And the next time the right leg is lifted, the left arm is lifted, pause there, keep your gaze down by the grounded hand, keep the belly pulled in. Notice how this feels to be in stillness, place of effort. Notice that movement that's still in the body to keep you steady and to keep you balanced. Stay with your breath. And when you've reached your edge, come back down to hands and knees, and then come into a child's pose to release. Take your arms down so that your hands are resting by your feet if that feels good to you at this time. Maybe roll out your wrist a little bit, sway from side to side. Breathe deeply into the belly. And when you're ready, you can come back up to hands and knees so we can switch sides. So hands under shoulders, knees under hips. This time ground down through the right leg. Lift the left leg up behind you, the right arm forward in front of you, both parallel to the floor. Inhale, lift, exhale, lower. So same thing, opposite side. Again, come back to noticing differences. Keep everything engaged. Full body brace in place. And the next time you have the left leg lifted, the right arm lifted forward, pause. Again, come back to noticing that movement that's required in the body to keep you balanced. Keep your gaze down by the grounded hand. Breath moving in and out through the nose. Focus on sensation. Stay with noticing. your edge, come back down to hands and knees, back down into child's pose to release. Stay with sensation, roll your wrist out a little bit, breathe deeply into the belly, and just come back to noticing and focusing in on yourself and recalling how the sides felt different to each other. When you're ready, you can come back up to your hands and knees. Hands under shoulders, knees under hips, feet straight out from the knees. Tuck the toes under, brace the front body, and send the hips up and back to downward facing dog. Press yourself away from the mat. With the inhale, begin to bring the knees back down to the mat and send your hips back to your heels. As you inhale, come right back up, tuck the toes under, send the hips up and back to downward facing dog. Inhale, bring the knees down, untuck the toes, and send your hips back to your heels. Move like this with your breath, this earth salutation. Take it slowly so that you can feel everything, even the transition times. Move at your own pace. Maybe notice something new. Make this your own. Next time you're in downward facing dog, pause there. Keep pressing yourself away from the mat. Keep the knees slightly bent, the tailbone slightly lifted. Head hanging heavy, face soft. Begin to walk the feet back to the back end of your mat a little bit more. Lift yourself way up onto your toes. Begin to move the shoulders forward on the inhale so that they track over your wrist, and on the exhale, push your hips up and back into downward facing dog. So move through this plank wave from plank to downward facing dog on your breath, keeping the breath moving through the nose. Keep the front body braced. And the next time you are in plank, pause. Again, keep the front body braced. Keep your gaze down by your hands, reaching through the heels and the top of your head, opposite directions, pressing yourself away from your mat so that you're not sinking down in the shoulders. Searching for your edge, listening to your body, and realizing that if you are being called out, what is calling you out, your mind or your body? And when you are ready to come out of this, take the knees down to the mat. Come into a child's pose, release, roll out through the wrists. Deep belly breaths. Maybe take the back of your hands to the mat. Release the wrists. It's a little bit more of a strong release. And then come back up to your hands and knees. Hands under shoulders, knees under hips. Tuck the toes under. Lift the hips up and back to downward facing dog. And start to pedal the heels on the breast. So one heel down as you bend the knee of the opposite leg and just move between the two sides on your breath. A little bit of movement. And begin to walk the feet and the hands together so that you come to the front of your mat in a forward fold. Take a hold of opposite elbows with your hands. Maybe sway a little bit from side to side. Bring that to stillness. Bend the knees, send the hips down and back, and inhale up through chair with your arms framing your ears. As you exhale, come to standing. Bring your arms down and around, hands to your heart. As you inhale, take the arms up and overhead, palms together, hands to heart. Hinge at your hips back into the forward fold. Bend the knees, send the hips down and back. Inhale, lift the torso and the arms to frame your ears. Exhale to standing, arms down and around, hands to your heart. As you inhale, take the arms up and over your head, palms together, hands to heart, hinge at your hips, into the forward fold. So just a few more times on your own, at your own pace. Again, familiar movement pattern probably to some of you, and if that's so, just start to notice something new to focus on. Pause in chair for more effort. Pause in the forward fold for less effort. And the next time you're in chair, pause there and begin to move the arms down behind you and then back up and overhead, framing your ears. Move really slowly. Pause with the arms straight in front of you. Bring the fingertips together just like we did before. And on your inhale, take the arms up toward the ears and just see how this feels. You might not be able to go quite as far with the arms with the fingertips pressing together. Notice how that feels. Notice the engagement of the arms with the fingertips pressed together, pausing with that pressure in place between the fingertips, between the two hands, still holding in chair pose, belly pulled in, face soft. Searching for the edge, a little longer hold, building strength. Come to standing, arms down and around, hands to your heart. Shake that out a little bit with some Tai Chi twists. And then come back to the front end of your mat. Bring your arms up and over your head. Hands to your heart, hinge at your hips back into the forward fold. And take your palms all the way down to the mat so that you can step way back with your right foot. So once you step the foot back, bring the right knee down to the floor. Left knee will be tracking over your ankle. The legs will be on separate lines. The right knee will be behind the right hip. Tuck the toes or keep the top of the foot pressed down, either one. Bring the arms up and overhead and then back down behind you on your exhale. So inhale up, exhale down. Pause with the arms straight in front of you. Bring your fingertips back together. Press them together. Notice the engagement of your arms. Keep the belly pulled in. Find a focal point in front of you. Notice what's happening to keep your balance. If this is enough, you can stay here. If you would like more effort, bring your hands down to your hips. Take your right knee up off of the floor, come up onto the ball of the foot on the right side. Left knee still tracking over your left ankle. Bring the arms back out, press the fingertips together. Maybe lift the arms up and down a few times with the fingertips still pressed together. And then pause with the arms straight forward, just like before, fingertips still pressed together. Arms engaged, belly pulled in. Some more challenge for your balance. When you're ready, you can take your hands down to the floor. Take the right knee down. Send your hips back to that right heel. Lengthen out the left leg in front of you and just point and flex the foot a few times to release the hamstring on the left leg. And then come back up, draw the right leg back in. Left and right feet are together now. Pause in a forward fold. Take the hands back down to the mat, step way back with your left foot. Walk the right foot forward a little bit so that the left knee is tracking behind the left hip, the right knee over the right ankle, arms up and overhead, and then back down a few times before you pause with the arms straight in front of you again with the fingertips pressed together. Play around with taking the arms up toward the ears a little bit more and then back down. Just notice how that feels different than having the hands apart. And pause with the arms straight forward. Keep the bandhas engaged. Keep focusing on something in front of you. Notice balance here. Again, you can stay here or take your hands to your hips. Lift the left knee up, right knee tracking over the ankle, left heel lifted. Bring the fingertips back together. Lift and lower the arms a few times, and then pause with the arms straight forward, fingertips still pressed together. Come back to noticing balance. Noticing sensation. Noticing differences between the two sides. When you have noticed that you're starting to feel a little bit shaky or unstable, take the hands back down to the mat, send your hips back to the left heel, lengthen out the right leg in front of you, and point and flex the foot a few times, releasing the hamstring on the right leg. And come back to hands and knees. Send your hips back to your heels, arms straight forward. Take your forehead to the floor. Release. Breathe deeply into the belly. Maybe sway the hips slowly from side to side. And take the knees out wide, big toes together, and then walk your hands to the right. So both hands will end up off of your mat. Drag the right hand back to rest next to the right knee on the floor. And then gently press yourself away on the right side so that you can bring your left shoulder a little bit closer to the floor. Forehead down. And then when you are ready, you can switch sides. So just lift your head up and walk your hands back over through center and off to the left. This time, drag your left hand back to meet with your left knee. Push yourself away on that side so that you can bring the right shoulder down toward the mat a little bit more. Keep the belly pulled in as you breathe and notice the sensation of opening on the right side. And when you are ready, you can bring everything back through center. Hands and knees. And take your left knee forward and your left foot over toward the right side of your mat. Lengthen out the right leg. So we're coming down into pigeon to open up the hips. Bring the effort level back down. If you need a block to rest your forehead on, or you can bring your forehead to the floor. You can place your head on stacked hands. Make sure that your hips are pretty even on the two sides, so just make sure that one hip isn't sinking down lower to the floor than the other. Come back to breath, come back to your intention. And this can be a pretty strong sensation, so just breathe, notice. You're ready, you can push yourself back up onto your hands and take your left hip down to the floor. Swing your right leg around so that your right foot is on the outside of your left thigh. Bring your right arm behind you, twist to the right, and bring your left elbow to the outside of your right knee. Take your gaze over your right arm. Come back to noticing breath and how the breath is moving your body, how the body is responding. And then slowly come out of that twist. Come back to hands and knees so that we can set up for pigeon on the other side. So bring your right knee forward, your right foot to the left leg lengthened out long. Come down onto your forearms and then rest your head either on a block or the mat. You can also cross your forearms over each other and rest your head there. Come back to noticing if the hips are level. Maybe sway from side to side a few times, and you'll be able to tell when you're in the center and when both hips are even. Notice if this side feels different. If it's hard to stay here, don't judge yourself. It is definitely an intense sensation in the hip. And then eventually bring yourself back up onto your hands. This time take the right hip to the floor, swing the left leg around, left foot on the outside of the right thigh, left arm behind you, twist to the left, and take your right elbow to the outside of your left knee. Come back to noticing breath, how it's moving your body in this twist. Sometimes in a twist, you will come more deeply into the twist on the exhale and a little bit out of it on the inhale. So just notice. When you're ready, come out of that twist. Come to sitting with your knees bent, feet on the floor in front of you, arms straight forward. And just a few times, bring your shoulder blades together on your back and then reach your fingertips forward. So back and forth a few times. And the next time you have your shoulder blades together on your back, pause, brace the front body, and begin to slowly lean back just a little bit with each breath. Pause when you feel the engagement in the abdominal muscles. Take your arms forward, fingertips pressed together, and begin to lift and lower the arms a few times just like before. Pause with the arms forward, fingertips pressed together. Keep the front body braced, shoulder blades together on your back. Keep breathing in and out through the nose. Searching for your edge, building the strength. And when you feel like you have reached your edge, bring the hands down to the mat, take them behind you. Take your feet to the outside edges of your mat and just begin windshield wipers while you're seated. It's a few times, take the knees from side to side, and then eventually lower your back body down to the mat and continue with windshield wiper movements. Now on your back, feet still walked out to the outside edges of your mat. Now the arms out into a T with the palms down. Moving the head and the knees in opposite directions on each exhale, coming back through the center on each inhale. Eventually bring that to stillness. Walk the feet back in, keep the knees bent, and take your right foot through the opening between your left foot and your left hip. Bring the knee down so it's facing pretty much straight forward. Take the right arm up and over your head, resting on the floor. And then if possible, reach down with your left hand to see if you can take a hold of your right foot. Stay here. Notice that opening of the hip. If you'd like to take the left leg over to the left and open that up as well, you can, or you can just stay where you were. Start to come back to your intention at this point. If you start to get distracted by anything, come back to the intention you set at the beginning of practice. And eventually bring everything back to the center and switch sides. So this time you will keep your knees bent. Take the left foot through the opening on the right side. Take the left arm up and overhead and reach down with your right hand and see if you can grab a hold of your left foot. Open the right leg out to the right if you wish. And again, just come back to your intention, come back to noticing. Just stay tuned in to sensation. Especially now that we are slowing down. Just really check in with yourself. Notice how you're feeling. And release that bind. Bring everything back through the center. Lengthen your legs out long. Arms down by your sides and set yourself up for Shavasana. So get to a point where you can be still again for a few minutes in Shavasana, and if you need to pause this recording to take a little bit of extra time, I would suggest that, just to have some time to digest your practice. Be still, relax everything. And bring your hands to your belly. And just noticing the movement that the breath is creating in the belly. And then eventually bringing the breath to an even belly breath. So as you inhale to the count of 4, pause for a count of 4. Exhale for the count of 4. Pause for the count of 4. Inhale, count of 4. Pause, count of 4. Exhale, count of 4. Pause, count of 4. So continue this breathing pattern on your own. Just again noticing those deep belly breaths, even breaths. Taking time for the pause. The top of the inhale, the bottom of the exhale. And bring that to stillness. Keep one hand on your belly and take the other hand to your chest. And just take a moment for a full, deep, complete inhale, letting the belly rise up as much as it needs to. Pause at the top of that inhale, and then begin a long, deep, complete exhale, letting the belly fall down, sink down towards your mat. Pause at the end of that exhale and just continue a few more times on your own. Bring your hands back down by your sides. And we will end today's practice with a chakra meditation where I will guide you through each of the energy centers of the body and suggest an affirmation to go along with each one. So take your hands to the very top of your head. This is the crown chakra. And repeat the affirmation. May I always search for higher knowing. And now move your hands down to the very center of your forehead. This is your third eye chakra. And use the affirmation, may I always trust my instincts and intuition. May I always trust my instincts and intuition. And now move your hands down to the area of your throat, the throat chakra. And repeat the affirmation, may I always speak my truth. May I always speak my truth clearly and feel understood. And then move your hands down to the area of your heart. This is the heart chakra. And repeat to yourself, may I always give and receive love freely. May I always give and receive love freely. And then move your hands down to the area just above your belly button. And this is the solar plexus chakra. And you can use the affirmation, may I always feel independent and courageous. May I always know my own strength. And then move your hands down to the area just under your belly button. And this is the sacral chakra. Repeat to yourself, may I always feel confidently creative. May I always be able to let go and have fun. And now bend your knees so that you can draw your feet together and take your hands around your feet. And it's here we'll focus on the root chakra, anywhere from the tailbone to your feet. And you can repeat to yourself as your affirmation, I feel grounded, safe, and protected. May I always feel the guidance of my ancestors. Now release everything down, come over onto your side. Pause here for just a moment. And then lift yourself back up to sitting, legs crossed. Hands to your heart, come back to your intention that you set at the beginning of your practice. Come back to the sound of your breath and the beat of your heart. It is the light in me that looks out and sees that same light within each one of you. Namaste.